Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition, and nobody expects their husband home before dark on a Tuesday. That's what I was thinking as I pulled into my own driveway 3 hours early, watching the rain hammer my windshield, like nature had a personal grudge against visibility. My name is Marlow Trasker, and I manage the biggest construction supply yard in this corner of Maine. Not glamorous work, but it pays the bills and keeps me busy enough that I don't usually come home early. Today was different. The storm that had been threatening all week finally arrived with a vengeance, grounding my flight to Portland and leaving me with nothing to do but drive home to my wife Vanna. The house looked normal from the outside, our modest 2-story colonial with the blue shutters Vanna insisted would make us look established, whatever that meant. I grabbed my overnight bag from the back seat and jogged through the downpour to the front door, keys already in hand. That's when I heard it. Laughter. Female laughter mixed with something deeper, more masculine, coming from upstairs. I stood in my own foyer, dripping rainwater onto the hardwood floors Vanna had spent 6 months picking out, and listened. The sounds were coming from our bedroom, or more specifically, from our bathroom, the big master bathroom with the jetted tub that Vanna claimed we absolutely needed when we renovated last year. My first thought was that she had friends over. Vanna worked in HR at a local tech firm and was always networking, always climbing some invisible social ladder that existed mainly in her head. But it was Tuesday afternoon. Who has bathtub parties on Tuesday afternoon? I set my bag down quietly and climbed the stairs, each step careful and deliberate. The laughter got louder. There was music playing too, some smooth jazz nonsense that Vanna liked to put on when she wanted to feel sophisticated. The bedroom door was open. Steam drifted out from the bathroom, and I could smell something floral and expensive. Bath salts, probably. The kind that cost more per ounce than decent whiskey. I approached the bathroom door, which was cracked open just enough to let the steam escape. Through the gap, I could see candles flickering on the counter. Champagne bottle on ice. 2 glasses. And in the tub, surrounded by bubbles and completely naked, were my wife Vanna and her brother-in-law, Rylan Ventor. They hadn't seen me yet. Vanna was leaning against Rylan's chest, her blonde hair piled up in some messy arrangement that probably took her an hour to make look casual. Rylan had his arms around her, whispering something in her ear that made her giggle like a teenager. Rylan Ventor. Real estate's answer to a used car salesman, married to Vanna's sister Kalia for 8 years. The kind of guy who wore expensive suits to the grocery store and drove a classic Mustang he treated like a religious artifact. I'd never liked him, but I'd tolerated him for family gatherings and barbecues. Apparently, I'd been tolerating more than I knew. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds, watching my marriage dissolve in a bathtub full of bubbles. Then I did something that surprised even me. I didn't yell. I didn't storm in. I didn't make a scene. Instead, I backed away from the door, pulled out my phone, and started recording. The audio was perfect. Every whisper, every splash, every intimate sound carried clearly through the steam-filled air. I let it run for 2 full minutes, capturing enough evidence to make any lawyer happy. Then I went downstairs to my basement office, what Vanna liked to call our panic room, because it had a separate entrance and a heavy door with a good lock. I uploaded the recording to 3 different cloud storage accounts, then sat back in my desk chair and thought about my next move. 20 minutes later, I was back upstairs, standing outside the bathroom door, with a screwdriver in my hand. The old-fashioned lock was easy to manipulate from the outside, a fact I'd filed away when we installed it, thinking it might be useful if someone ever got locked in accidentally. I turned the mechanism until it clicked, trapping them inside. Then I went down to the basement utility room and shut off the hot water heater. Back upstairs, I placed my phone on the bathroom counter, just outside the door, and dialed Kalia Ventor. "Marlow?" Her voice was breathless, like she'd been working out. "What's going on? Why are you calling me?" "You might want to come over. I said, keeping my voice flat and emotionless. And bring all your car titles and joint account paperwork. What? Marlow, what are you talking about? I hung up before she could ask more questions. While I waited, I walked through the house systematically, gathering important documents from the safe, transferring files from our shared computer to my personal laptop, and moving anything valuable or irreplaceable to the basement office. Wedding photos went in a box. Vanna's jewelry stayed where it was. From upstairs, I could hear voices getting louder. The water was getting cold, and they were starting to realize the door wouldn't open. Marlow? Vanna's voice carried down the stairs. Marlow, are you home? The door's stuck. I didn't answer. I was too busy scheduling a locksmith for first thing tomorrow morning. Kalia arrived in 15 minutes, which meant she'd driven like a maniac through the storm. She burst through the front door without knocking, her dark hair plastered to her head and her gym clothes soaked through. Where are they? She demanded. I pointed toward the ceiling. Bathroom, locked in. Her face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, disbelief, understanding, and finally, rage. Pure, undiluted rage. Show me, she said. I handed her my phone with the recording queued up. She listened for 30 seconds before her face went completely white. That piece of garbage, she whispered. Then louder, that lying, cheating piece of garbage. She was up the stairs before I could stop her, pounding on the bathroom door with both fists. Rylan, you open this door right now! The sounds from inside the bathroom changed instantly. Splashing, panic, Vanna's voice high and frightened. Oh God, oh God, oh God! I followed Kalia upstairs, pulling the screwdriver from my pocket. Step back, I told her. I unlocked the door and pushed it open. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The scene that greeted us was almost comical. Vanna and Rylan were both standing in the tub, trying to cover themselves with inadequate washcloths. The bubbles had mostly dissolved, leaving them exposed and ridiculous. Rylan's face was the color of old cheese. Kalia, he stammered. This isn't... We weren't... Kalia stepped forward like she was going to climb right into the tub with them. I caught her arm. Not worth it, I said quietly. Let them get dressed first. Then we'll talk. But Kalia had other ideas. She grabbed the biggest towel from the rack and threw it at Rylan. Get out, she said. Get out of that tub, get out of this house, and get out of my life. Rylan wrapped the towel around his waist and climbed out, dripping and pathetic. Vanna reached for him, but he was already moving toward the door. Rylan, don't leave me here, Vanna pleaded. He didn't look back. I followed him downstairs, Kalia right behind me. At the front door, Rylan turned around, trying to summon some dignity. Look, Marlow, this is just a misunderstanding. I opened the door and shoved him outside into the rain. He stumbled down the front steps, the towel barely staying in place, and ran for his car. As he drove away, I noticed Ms. Hennessy, our neighbor across the street, watching through her blinds. She'd gotten quite a show today. I closed the door and turned to face Kalia, who was standing in my foyer with her fists clenched and her eyes blazing. I want copies of everything, she said. Every recording, every photo, every piece of evidence you have. Already done, I said, handing her a flash drive I'd prepared while she was upstairs. There's also a copy on its way to my lawyer. She took the drive and nodded grimly. Good, because I'm going to ruin him. I'm going to take every penny he has, every asset, every... Kalia. Vanna appeared at the top of the stairs, wrapped in a bathrobe, her hair a mess and her makeup smeared. Kalia, please, let me explain. Kalia looked up at her sister, her younger sister who she'd helped through college, who she'd supported through every crisis and celebration for 32 years. Explain? Kalia's voice was quiet. Explain how you were screwing my husband in your bathtub while I was at spin class? Vanna started to cry. Big, dramatic tears that might have worked on me once upon a time. "It just happened," she sobbed. "We didn't plan it. It was just—" "Just what?" I interrupted. "Just Tuesday? Just this once? Just the tip of the iceberg?" Vanna looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Maybe she was. In 8 years of marriage, she'd never seen me like this. Calm, cold, in control. "Marlow, please," she said. "We can work through this. We can go to counseling. We can—" "No," I said simply. "We can't." I walked to the front closet and pulled out 2 suitcases, the ones we'd used for our honeymoon in Cancun. I set them at the bottom of the stairs. "Pack what you need for a few days," I said. "Everything else, we'll figure out through lawyers. You can't throw me out of my own house." "Actually, I can. The mortgage is in my name. The deed is in my name. You might want to call your sister and ask if you can stay with her. Oh, wait." Kalia was already heading for the door. "Don't bother," she called back. "I won't be home tonight, or tomorrow night, or any night until I figure out what I'm doing next." The door slammed behind her, leaving me alone with my wife. Vanna came down the stairs slowly, like she was walking to her own execution. "Marlow," she said softly, "I know you're angry. I know this looks bad, but we've been married for 8 years. Doesn't that count for something?" I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I'd fallen in love with at a company picnic, who'd laughed at my jokes and made me feel like the smartest, funniest guy in the room. The woman who'd walked down the aisle in her grandmother's dress and promised to love, honor, and cherish me until the end of time. 8 years, I repeated. "You're right. That does count for something." Hope flickered in her eyes. "It counts for 8 years of my life that I'll never get back," I continued. 8 years of believing in something that was apparently a joke to you." The hope disappeared. "Start packing," I said. "I'm going to make some coffee and call my lawyer. When I'm done, I want you gone." She started to say something else, but I was already walking away. I had work to do. By the time Vanna finished packing, the rain had stopped, and the sun was setting behind the clouds. I watched from the kitchen window as she loaded her suitcases into her Honda Civic, moving with the careful precision of someone trying not to break down completely. She came back to the door one more time. "Marlow," she said through the screen, "I left my key on the counter, and I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am sorry." I didn't answer. After a moment, she walked away. I waited until her taillights disappeared around the corner, then I called Derek Mullins, the best divorce lawyer in 3 counties. Derek had handled my business contracts for years, and I trusted him to keep his mouth shut and his billing honest. "Marlow," Derek's gravelly voice came through the phone. "Little late for a business call, isn't it?" "This isn't business," I said. "This is war." I gave him the short version, told him about the evidence, and arranged to meet first thing in the morning. Then I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and sat in my kitchen, listening to the house settle around me. It was quiet. Too quiet. For 8 years, this house had been full of Vanna's energy, her music, her phone calls, her constant need to rearrange furniture and redecorate rooms that were perfectly fine the way they were. Now it felt like a museum. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Meet me at the Shingle in an hour. R. Rylan." The man had nerve. I'd give him that. I finished my bourbon, grabbed my jacket, and drove to the Shingle, a dive bar on the edge of town that catered to construction workers, truckers, and anyone else who wanted to drink without pretense. It was the kind of place where everyone minded their own business, and the bartender knew better than to water down the whiskey. Oscar Brennan was working security that night, which was perfect. Oscar had been my best friend since high school, a stocky Irish guy with a quick wit and an even quicker temper. He'd been a cop for 10 years before a knee injury forced him into private security work. "Well, well," Oscar said as I walked in, "if it isn't the talk of the town." "What do you mean?" Mrs. Hennessy's been calling everyone she knows. Half the town's heard about your little drama by now. He grinned. She said Rylan Ventor ran out of your house in nothing but a towel, screaming like his hair was on fire. That's not exactly what happened. I know, but Mrs. Hennessy's version is a lot more entertaining. I ordered a beer and looked around the bar. Rylan was sitting in a corner booth, still wearing the expensive suit he'd probably put on to impress my wife. He looked like he'd aged 5 years in the past 3 hours. "You sure you want to do this?" Oscar asked, following my gaze. "I'm sure." I walked over to Rylan's table and sat down across from him. Up close, he looked even worse, pale, sweaty, and twitchy. "Thanks for coming," he said. "Don't thank me yet. What do you want?" "I want to explain." "Explain what? How you ended up naked in my bathtub with my wife? Because I'm pretty sure I understand the mechanics." He flinched. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." "How was it supposed to happen?" "We never meant for anyone to get hurt." I leaned back in my chair and studied him. Rylan Ventor, real estate king, reduced to pleading with the guy whose life he'd just destroyed. "How long?" I asked. "What?" "How long have you been screwing my wife?" He looked around the bar like he was hoping for rescue. "A few months." "How many months?" Since your birthday party." My birthday party, 4 months ago. Vanna had thrown me a surprise party, invited all our friends and family. I remembered Rylan being especially helpful that night, staying late to clean up, being unusually friendly. "So while I was thanking you for helping with my party, you were planning to screw my wife." "It wasn't like that. It just happened." "Things don't just happen, Rylan. People make choices. You chose to betray your wife. You chose to betray me. You chose to destroy 2 marriages for what? A few afternoons in my bathtub?" "I love her," he said quietly. That stopped me cold. Of all the things I'd expected him to say, that wasn't one of them. "You love her?" "Yes." "And she loves you?" "Yes." I nodded slowly, processing this information. It changed things. Not the outcome. Vanna and I were finished, and Rylan's marriage was probably over too. But it changed the nature of what I was dealing with. "Well then," I said, standing up, "I guess that makes this easier." "What do you mean?" "I mean you can have her, all of her. Her credit card debt, her shopping addiction, her need to redecorate the house every 6 months, her mother, who calls 3 times a day, her collection of self-help books, and her obsession with organic everything. You can have all of it." "Marlow, But first, you're going to pay for what you've done." His face went white. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about consequences. You think you can just walk away from this? Go back to your real estate business and your fancy car and pretend nothing happened?" "I'm leaving Kalia. We're going to be together." "Are you? Have you told Vanna that? Because when I left her tonight, she seemed pretty interested in saving her marriage." That hit home. I could see the doubt creeping into his eyes. "She'll choose me," he said, but he didn't sound convinced. "Maybe. Or maybe she'll choose whoever can give her the lifestyle she wants. And right now, that's not looking like you." I left him sitting there and walked back to the bar. Oscar was waiting with another beer. "How'd that go?" he asked. "Better than expected. Turns out our boy Rylan thinks he's in love." "With Vanna?" "Apparently." Oscar whistled low. "That's going to complicate things." "Actually, it's going to simplify them. A man in love does stupid things, predictable things." "What are you planning?" I took a long drink of beer and smiled. "Justice." The next morning, I met Derek at his office at 8 sharp. He'd already reviewed the evidence I'd sent him overnight, and his assessment was straightforward. "You've got them cold," he said, leaning back in his leather chair. "Audio, video, witnesses. If you want a divorce, you'll get one, and it'll be favorable to you." "What about assets?" "The house is yours, the business is yours, most of the investments are in your name. She might get some spousal support, but not much and not for long. She's got a job, no kids, and she's the one who cheated. Good. What else can we do? Derek raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I mean, what other legal options do I have? Alienation of affection? Intentional infliction of emotional distress? Get creative? Marlow, I understand you're angry, but I'm not angry, I interrupted. I'm focused. These people thought they could make a fool of me, destroy my marriage, and walk away without consequences. I want to show them how wrong they were. Derek was quiet for a moment, studying my face. All right, he said finally. Let me make some calls. I spent the rest of the morning at the supply yard, trying to focus on work but mostly thinking about strategy. By lunch, I had a plan. First stop, the bank. I froze all joint accounts and credit cards. Vanna would find out when she tried to buy lunch. Second stop, the phone company. I had Vanna removed from our family plan and changed all the passwords on our shared accounts. Third stop, home. I changed the locks, just like I'd planned. By 3 o'clock, my phone was ringing. Marlow, what the hell is going on? Vanna's voice was shrill with panic. My credit cards aren't working, my phone's been shut off, and I can't get into the house. I know, I said calmly. I did all of that. You can't just cut me off. I need money. I need my things. You need to call your lawyer. I don't have a lawyer. Then I suggest you get one. And Vanna, next time you want to have an affair, make sure your lover can afford to support you. I hung up and poured myself a cup of coffee. Through the kitchen window, I could see Mrs. Hennessy working in her garden, but I knew she was really watching my house. She'd probably seen Vanna trying to get in earlier. My phone rang again. Different number this time. Marlow, it's Kalia. We need to talk. What about? About making sure these two pieces of garbage get exactly what they deserve. I smiled. Come on over. I'll put on a fresh pot of coffee. Kalia arrived 20 minutes later, looking like she hadn't slept. Her eyes were red-rimmed but determined, and she was carrying a thick folder. I've been busy, she said, spreading papers across my kitchen table. Bank statements, credit card records, phone bills. Want to guess what I found? I looked at the documents. Hotel receipts, restaurant charges, expensive gifts purchased with joint credit cards. They've been at this for months, Kalia continued, and they've been spending my money to do it. How much? $12,000, maybe more. I whistled. That's a lot of bathtub time. It's theft, is what it is. Rylan used our joint credit card to pay for hotel rooms, dinners, jewelry for your wife. He bought her a bracelet that cost more than my car payment. Can you prove it was for her? I don't have to. The receipts speak for themselves. Jewelry store, women's clothing, romantic restaurants. Either my husband was having an affair, or he's developed some very expensive hobbies. We spent the next hour going through everything, building a timeline of the affair. It was worse than I'd thought. They'd been meeting regularly, always on days when I was traveling for work. They'd used my house, hotel rooms, even Rylan's office after hours. I want to destroy them, Kalia said quietly. Not just divorce them, destroy them. That's the plan, I said. But we have to be smart about it, legal, above board. What did you have in mind? I told her about my conversation with Derek, about the legal options we were exploring. Then I told her about the rest of my plan. The thing about small towns, I said, is that reputation matters. Rylan's whole business is built on trust, on being seen as a family man, a pillar of the community. What happens to that when everyone knows what kind of man he really is? Social ruin. Exactly. And Vanna's the same way. She spent years building this image of herself as the perfect wife, the successful career woman. All of that goes away when people know the truth. So we make sure people know the truth. We make sure the right people know the truth. Her boss, his clients, their friends. We don't have to lie or exaggerate. We just have to make sure the facts get out there. Kalia smiled for the first time since she'd arrived. I like the way you think. There's more, I said. But for the next part, we're going to need help. What kind of help? The kind that Oscar Brennan specializes in. That evening, I met Oscar at the Shingle again. The place was busier tonight, full of guys getting off second shift and a few regulars who treated the bar like their personal office. "So," Oscar said, sliding a beer across the table, "I hear you're planning to take down the real estate king. Word travels fast." "Small town, buddy. Plus, Mrs. Hennessy's been giving interviews to anyone who'll listen. According to her, you caught them in the act and threw Rylan out naked. Close enough. So what do you need from me?" I told him about the plan Kalia and I had developed. Oscar listened without interruption, occasionally nodding or raising an eyebrow. "It's doable," he said when I finished. "But it's going to take time, and it might get messy." "I've got time, and I don't mind messy." "All right then." Oscar raised his beer. "To justice. To justice." We clinked bottles, and I felt something settle in my chest. For the first time since I'd walked into that bathroom, I felt like I was back in control. My phone buzzed. Text message from Vanna. "Please call me, we need to talk." I showed the message to Oscar. "You going to call her back?" "Eventually," I said. "But not tonight. Tonight she can wonder what I'm planning." "And what are you planning?" I smiled. "To give her exactly what she deserves." The next few days fell into a rhythm. I went to work, came home to my quiet house, and methodically dismantled the life Vanna and I had built together. It was surprisingly therapeutic. Derek had filed the divorce papers and served Vanna at her office, which caused exactly the kind of scene I'd hoped for. According to my sources, Mrs. Hennessy had a friend who worked in the same building. Vanna had burst into tears right there in the lobby, loud enough for half the company to hear. Kalia was handling Rylan's destruction with military precision. She'd filed for legal separation, frozen their assets, and started the process of taking his name off everything they owned together. More importantly, she'd started making phone calls. "I talked to 3 of his biggest clients today," she told me over coffee at my kitchen table. "Just casual conversations, you understand. Mentioned that we were having some marital difficulties, that I was concerned about Rylan's judgment lately. How'd they take it? Let's just say they're going to be asking some pointed questions at their next meetings. Rylan's real estate business depended on trust and reputation. In a small town like ours, both could disappear overnight. Kalia was making sure they did. Meanwhile, I was working on Vanna's social circle. It wasn't hard. Vanna had always been competitive with her friends, always trying to prove she had the perfect marriage, the perfect house, the perfect life. When word got out that her perfect husband had caught her cheating with her brother-in-law, the gossip mill went into overdrive. Mrs. Hennessy was particularly helpful in this regard. She'd appointed herself as the neighborhood's official news source, and she took the job seriously. By the end of the week, there wasn't a person within 10 miles who didn't know the basic story. Of course, the story grew in the telling. According to the latest version I'd heard, Rylan had been living a double life for years. Vanna had been running some kind of escort service out of our house, and I'd caught them with photographic evidence that was now being used by the FBI to investigate a larger conspiracy. I didn't correct any of these stories. The truth was damaging enough, but the rumors were destroying them. On Friday night, Vanna finally cornered me. I was leaving the supply yard when she pulled up in her Honda, blocking my truck in the parking lot. She got out and walked over to my driver's side window. "We need to talk," she said. She looked terrible. Her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wasn't wearing makeup, and her clothes looked like she'd slept in them, which she probably had, since I'd heard she was staying at a cheap motel on Route 9. "I'm listening," I said, not bothering to roll the window down all the way. "This has gone far enough, Marlow. I made a mistake, okay? I admit it, but you're destroying my life." "I'm not destroying anything. I'm just not protecting you from the consequences of your choices anymore. My credit cards, my phone, the house, You can't just cut me off from everything? Actually, I can. And I did. I can't even afford a decent lawyer. That sounds like a personal problem. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her trying to figure out how to play this. The tears weren't working. The anger wasn't working. Time to try a different approach. What about what we had? She said softly. 8 years, Marlow. We were happy. Were we? Or was I just too stupid to see what was really going on? We were happy. I was happy. This thing with Rylan, it was just a mistake. A stupid, selfish mistake. A 4-month mistake. Yes, but it's over now. He's not the man I thought he was. That was interesting. What do you mean? He promised me things, said we'd be together, but now that everything's falling apart, he's backing away, saying we need to be careful, that we should wait until the divorces are final. Smart man. He's a coward, she said bitterly. When things got difficult, he ran. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. She'd thrown away 8 years of marriage for a fantasy, and now she was discovering that her knight in shining armor was actually just another selfish man looking out for himself. So, what do you want from me? I asked. I want us to try again. Go to counseling. Work through this. We can get past this, Marlow. We can be stronger than before. No, I said simply. We can't. Why not? Because I don't trust you anymore. Because every time I look at you, I see you in that bathtub with him. Because you didn't just cheat on me, you humiliated me. You never meant for me to find out. That's different. I started my truck. Move your car, Vanna. Marlow, please. Move your car, or I'll move it for you. She stepped back, and I could see the exact moment when she realized that pleading wasn't going to work. Her expression hardened. Fine, she said, if that's how you want to play it, but you're not the only one who can make life difficult. Is that a threat? It's a promise. You think you can ruin my life and walk away? Think again. She got back in her car and drove off, tires squealing on the asphalt. I sat in my truck for a minute, thinking. Vanna was getting desperate, which made her dangerous. Desperate people did stupid things, and stupid things created opportunities. I pulled out my phone and called Oscar. I think it's time to move to phase 2, I said. What happened? I told him about the conversation with Vanna, about her threats, and her apparent falling out with Rylan. She's going to try something, I said. And when she does, I want to be ready. What do you need? Surveillance. I want to know where she goes, who she talks to, what she's planning. That's going to cost extra. I don't care what it costs. Saturday morning, I was working in my garage when Rylan showed up. I heard the rumble of his Mustang before I saw him, that distinctive engine sound he was so proud of. He parked in my driveway like he belonged there and walked up to the garage like we were old friends. Morning, Marlow. I didn't look up from the workbench where I was organizing tools. What do you want, Rylan? I want to talk, man to man. I thought we did that already. That was different. This is about moving forward. I set down the wrench I was holding and turned to face him. He was dressed casually today, jeans and a polo shirt, but he still managed to look like he was posing for a magazine ad. Moving forward, I repeated. Look, I know this situation is complicated, but we're both reasonable men. We can work something out. What kind of something? A deal. You back off the legal pressure, stop the gossip campaign, and I'll make sure you're compensated for your inconvenience. I stared at him. You want to pay me off? I want to make this easier for everyone involved. How much? How much what? How much is my marriage worth to you? How much are you willing to pay for the privilege of screwing my wife? He flushed red. It's not like that. Then what's it like? It's about love. Vanna and I, we found something together. Something real. Something real. I said slowly. In my bathtub. I know how it looks. It looks like you're a cheating piece of garbage who destroyed 2 marriages because you couldn't keep it in your pants. That's not fair. Fair? I stepped closer to him, close enough that he had to look up to meet my eyes. You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that I worked 60-hour weeks to pay for this house while you were planning to screw my wife in it? Is it fair that your wife trusted you while you were stealing from her to buy gifts for your mistress? I never stole anything. Joint credit card, Rylan. $12,000 in charges for hotels and jewelry and romantic dinners. That's theft. His face went white. How do you know about that? Kalia and I have been comparing notes. Turns out you're not as clever as you think you are. Look, I can explain. I don't want your explanations. I want you off my property. Marlow, be reasonable. We can work this out. Get out. I'm trying to be civilized here. I picked up a hammer from the workbench. Get out of my garage, get off my property, and stay away from me. Are you threatening me? I'm making you a promise. Come near my house again, and next time, you'll wish the cops found you first. He backed toward his car, hands raised. This isn't over, Marlow. Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet. He got in his Mustang and drove away, but not before I noticed him taking pictures of my house with his phone. Probably building a case that I was unstable, dangerous. That was fine. I had pictures too. That afternoon, Oscar called with an update. Your wife's been busy, he said. She met with a lawyer this morning. Not a divorce lawyer, a different kind. What kind? The kind that handles harassment cases, restraining orders. I wasn't surprised. What else? She's also been making calls. Lots of calls. To her friends, her family, her co-workers. Spinning a story about how you've gone crazy, how you're stalking her and threatening her. Any evidence? Not yet. But she's building a narrative, painting herself as the victim. Of course she is. What about Rylan? He's been quiet, laying low. But I did see him at the bank this morning, and he looked pretty stressed. Kalia's been tightening the screws. Seems like it's working. That evening, I was sitting on my back porch with a beer when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Marlow? It's me. Vanna. She sounded different, smaller, more vulnerable. What do you want? I want to come home. This isn't your home anymore. Please, just for tonight, I can't stay at that motel anymore. It's horrible. Then find somewhere else. I don't have anywhere else. My friends won't return my calls. My family thinks I'm a disgrace, and I can't afford anything better. That's what happens when you cheat on your husband with your brother-in-law. I know I messed up, but I'm still a person, Marlow. I'm still the woman you married. No, I said. You're not. The woman I married would never have done what you did. People make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice, a series of choices. You chose to betray me, you chose to lie to me, and you chose to humiliate me. Now you get to live with the consequences. I'll do anything, she said desperately. Anything you want. Just please, let me come home. For a moment, I almost wavered. She sounded so broken, so defeated. But then I remembered the laughter I'd heard coming from my bathroom, the sound of my wife enjoying herself with another man in my house. Anything? I said. Yes, anything. Then go back in time and don't cheat on me. I hung up. 10 minutes later, she called back. Marlow, please! I hung up again. She called 6 more times. I let them all go to voicemail. The next morning, I woke up to find my truck's tires slashed and liar spray-painted across my garage door. I called the police, filed a report, and had Oscar check the security cameras. The footage was clear. Vanna creeping around my property at 2 a.m. with a knife and a can of red spray paint. I made copies of everything and sent them to Derek. This is good, he said when I called him. Really good. She's just handed us everything we need to prove she's unstable and vindictive. What's our next move? Restraining order. We flip the script. Instead of her claiming you're harassing her, we show the court that she's the one who can't be trusted. Do it. By noon, Vanna had been served with a restraining order, requiring her to stay at least 500 feet away from me, my house, and my workplace. By evening, the story was all over town. Mrs. Hennessy called me personally to get the details. "Is it true she vandalized your property?" she asked, breathlessly. "That's what the police report says." My goodness. And I thought she seemed like such a nice girl. Appearances can be deceiving. Indeed, they can. You know, I always thought there was something off about her. Too perfect, if you know what I mean. I didn't bother pointing out that Mrs. Hennessy had always spoken highly of Vanna before this week. "Well," she continued, "I suppose this just goes to show that you never really know someone." "No," I said. "I suppose you don't." After I hung up, I poured myself a bourbon and sat in my quiet house, thinking about the next phase of my plan. Vanna and Rylan had made their choices. Now it was time for them to face the consequences. And I was just getting started. The restraining order changed everything. Suddenly, I wasn't the wronged husband trying to destroy his cheating wife. I was the victim of harassment and vandalism, forced to seek legal protection from an unstable woman. The narrative shift was beautiful to watch. Within days, the gossip mill had completely reversed course. Now the story wasn't about my marriage falling apart. It was about poor Marlow Trasker, who'd discovered his wife's affair and was now being stalked and threatened by the woman he'd trusted for 8 years. Mrs. Hennessy was particularly effective at spreading this new version of events. She'd appointed herself as my unofficial spokesperson, telling anyone who would listen about how she'd seen Vanna creeping around my property in the middle of the night, like some kind of criminal. The effect on Vanna's reputation was devastating. Her friends stopped taking her calls. Her co-workers avoided her at the office. Even her own mother started screening her phone calls. But the best part was watching Rylan's reaction to his girlfriend's legal troubles. According to Oscar's surveillance reports, Rylan had been keeping his distance from Vanna ever since the restraining order was served. No more romantic dinners, no more hotel meetings, no more expensive gifts. Apparently, being in love was less appealing when it came with potential legal liability. "He's abandoned her," Oscar told me over coffee at the Shingle. "Complete radio silence. Won't take her calls. Won't meet with her. She's been sitting in her car outside his office for hours, just waiting for him to come out." "How's she taking it?" "About as well as you'd expect. Yesterday, she threw a rock through his office window." I nearly choked on my coffee. "Please tell me you got that on video." "Better. The building's security cameras caught the whole thing. And get this, she stuck around to argue with the cops when they showed up." "Any charges?" "Vandalism. She's got a court date next week." This was better than I'd hoped. Vanna wasn't just destroying her own life anymore. She was actively sabotaging any chance she had of rebuilding it. But Rylan's abandonment of his supposed true love gave me an idea for the next phase of my plan. That evening, I drove to Rylan's house, the big colonial he'd bought during the real estate boom, with the circular driveway and the perfectly manicured lawn. His beloved Mustang was parked in the garage, but I could see it through the open door. I parked across the street and waited. At 9:30, Rylan came out to get something from his car. I got out of my truck and walked across the street. "Evening, Rylan." He spun around, clearly startled. "Marlow, what are you doing here?" "Just thought I'd check on you. See how you're handling your girlfriend's mental breakdown." "She's not my girlfriend." "No? That's not what you told me a week ago. Something about love, wasn't it?" That was before she went crazy." "Ah, so you're only in love with her when she's not causing you problems." "Got it." He looked around nervously, probably wondering if any of his neighbors were watching. "Look, I don't know what you want, but I want to make you a deal." "What kind of deal?" "The kind where you help me finish this, and I make sure your name stays out of the worst of it." "I don't understand." "Vanna's spiraling. She's going to keep escalating until she does something really stupid, something that could drag you down with her. Like what? Like showing up at your house at 3 in the morning with a can of gasoline, like calling your clients and telling them about your affair, like deciding that if she can't have you, nobody can. His face went pale. She wouldn't do that. Wouldn't she? She slashed my tires and vandalized my garage. She threw a rock through your office window. What's next? What do you want me to do? I want you to help me give her what she wants. Which is? A final confrontation. A chance to air all her grievances, make all her accusations, get everything out in the open. That sounds like a terrible idea. For her, yes. For us, it's perfect. We control the setting, we control the audience, and we make sure everything's recorded. I don't know. Think about it, Rylan. Right now, you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Waiting for her to do something that destroys what's left of your reputation. This way, we end it on our terms. What exactly are you proposing? I told him my plan. It was simple, elegant, and completely legal. More importantly, it would give both Vanna and Rylan exactly what they deserved. You're insane, he said when I finished. I'm practical. This ends one way or another. We can let Vanna control how it ends, or we can control it ourselves. And if I say no, then you're on your own. And when she comes for you, and she will come for you, don't expect any help from me. He was quiet for a long moment, staring at his precious Mustang. When? He asked finally. Tomorrow night. The Riverside Motel on Route 9. Room 12. How do you know she'll come? Because you're going to call her and tell her you've made a mistake, that you want to work things out. She'll never believe that. She'll believe it because she wants to believe it, because she's desperate and alone and running out of options. And then what? Then we give her a show she'll never forget. The next evening, I arrived at the Riverside Motel an hour early. It was exactly the kind of place I'd expected, cheap, shabby, and discreet. The kind of place where people went when they didn't want to be seen. Room 12 was on the ground floor, facing the parking lot. Perfect for what I had in mind. Oscar was already there, setting up cameras in the adjoining room. We'd rented both rooms, and the thin walls would let us hear everything that happened next door. Audio's good, Oscar reported. Video's good. We've got 3 different angles. What about outside? 2 more cameras covering the parking lot and the door. If she shows up, we'll have everything. Derek arrived at 8, carrying a briefcase full of legal documents. I still think this is risky, he said. Everything's risky, but this way, we control the risk. What if she doesn't show? She'll show. Rylan's been calling her all day, telling her how sorry he is, how much he misses her. She's been waiting for this. At 8:30, Rylan arrived, looking like he was walking to his own execution. I can't believe I'm doing this, he muttered. Just stick to the script, I told him. Let her talk, let her confess, let her hang herself. What if she gets violent? That's what Oscar's for. At 9 o'clock, a Honda Civic pulled into the parking lot. Showtime, I said. Vanna got out of her car and walked to room 12. Even from a distance, I could see that she'd made an effort. New dress, hair done, makeup perfect. She was dressed for seduction, not confrontation. Rylan opened the door and let her in. Oh, Rylan, her voice carried clearly through the thin walls. I knew you'd come to your senses. Vanna, we need to talk. We can talk later. I've missed you so much. There was silence for a moment, then the sound of Rylan clearing his throat. Vanna, stop. We really do need to talk. About what? About us. About what we're doing. What we're doing is being together, like we should have been all along. It's not that simple. Yes, it is. We love each other. That's all that matters. What about our marriages? What about the people we've hurt? Marlow will get over it. And Kalia, well, Kalia never understood you anyway. She's taking everything, Vanna. The house, the business, the cars. I'm going to lose everything. We'll build something new, something better. With what money? I'm broke. The legal fees alone are going to bankrupt me. We'll figure it out. We always do. No, we don't. We don't figure anything out. We just make messes and expect other people to clean them up. There was a long pause. What are you saying? Vanna's voice was smaller now, uncertain. I'm saying this was a mistake, all of it. You don't mean that. Yes, I do. We destroyed 2 marriages, hurt people we cared about, and for what? For a few months of sneaking around like teenagers? For love. This isn't love, Vanna. This is selfishness. This is 2 people who were bored with their lives and decided to blow everything up, rather than deal with their problems like adults. That's not true. Isn't it? When things got difficult, what did we do? Did we face the consequences together? Did we support each other? No, we both ran. I ran from you, you ran from reality. I didn't run from anything. You slashed Marlow's tires. You threw rocks through my window. You've been sitting outside my office like some kind of stalker. I was fighting for us. You were having a breakdown and dragging me down with you. The silence that followed was deafening. When Vanna spoke again, her voice was cold. So that's it? You're just going to walk away? I'm going to try to salvage what's left of my life. What about me? What about you? What am I supposed to do? I don't know, Vanna. That's not my problem anymore. Not your problem? I left my husband for you. You left your husband because you were unhappy. Don't put that on me. You said you loved me. I thought I did. I was wrong. The sound that came through the wall next was something between a scream and a sob. Then there was a crash, like something being thrown against the wall. Vanna, calm down. Calm down. Calm down. You ruined my life. You ruined your own life. We both did. I hate you. I hate you so much. I know. I'm going to make you pay for this. Both of you. You and Marlow, you think you're so smart, so superior, but I'm going to destroy you. How? You can't even afford a decent lawyer. Another crash. Then the sound of the door slamming. Through the window, I watched Vanna storm across the parking lot to her car. But instead of getting in and driving away, she stopped and looked back at room 12. Then she walked to Rylan's Mustang. Oh, this is good, Oscar whispered. Vanna looked around to make sure no one was watching, then pulled something out of her purse. A knife, the same one she'd used on my tires. She went to work on Rylan's car with methodical precision. All 4 tires, long scratches down the sides, the windshield spider-webbed with cracks. By the time she was finished, the Mustang looked like it had been through a war zone. Rylan came out of the motel room just as she was putting the finishing touches on his hood. Vanna, what are you doing? She turned to face him, the knife still in her hand. Giving you exactly what you deserve. You're insane. I'm angry. There's a difference. I'm calling the cops. Go ahead. Tell them how your girlfriend destroyed your car because you're a lying, cheating coward. Rylan pulled out his phone, but Vanna was already walking back to her Honda. This isn't over, she called back. Not even close. She drove away, leaving Rylan standing in the parking lot next to his ruined car. I waited 5 minutes, then walked out of room 11. Rough night? I asked. Rylan spun around. You set this up. I set up a conversation. You set up everything else. She destroyed my car. Yes, she did, and we have it all on video. You recorded us? Audio and video, everything. The confession, the threats, the vandalism, all of it. That's illegal. Actually, it's not. Maine is a one-party consent state, and Rylan, you consented when you agreed to this plan. Derek stepped out of room 11, briefcase in hand. Good evening, Mr. Ventor. I think we need to talk. 2 hours later, we had everything we needed. Rylan had signed statements, provided additional evidence of the affair, and agreed to cooperate with both divorce proceedings in exchange for our promise not to pursue criminal charges for his role in the financial fraud. "What happens now?" he asked as we prepared to leave. "Now you go home and figure out how to rebuild your life," I said. "And you stay away from my wife." "Ex-wife. Not yet, but soon." I left him at the motel waiting for a tow truck to collect what was left of his car. On the drive home, Derek outlined our next steps. We file for an emergency hearing, present all the evidence, and ask for a fast-track divorce. With everything we have, the original affair evidence, the vandalism, the threats, tonight's recordings, no judge is going to make you wait. How long? 6 weeks, maybe less. And Vanna? Vanna's going to find herself in a very difficult position. She's violated the restraining order, committed multiple acts of vandalism, and made threats on camera. Her lawyer's going to advise her to take whatever settlement we offer. Which will be? Nothing. She gets nothing. I smiled. Perfect. The next morning, I woke up in my quiet house and made coffee in my peaceful kitchen. Outside, Mrs. Hennessy was working in her garden, but for once she wasn't watching my house. The drama was over, and even she seemed to sense it. My phone rang. Oscar. "Turn on Channel 8, he said. I found the remote and switched to the local news. The morning anchor was reading a story about vandalism at the Riverside Motel, complete with footage of Rylan's destroyed Mustang. Local real estate agent Rylan Ventor told police that his vehicle was vandalized by an unidentified woman following what he described as a personal dispute, the anchor read. Police are investigating the incident as part of an ongoing domestic situation. I turned off the TV and finished my coffee. Justice, I thought, tasted better than I'd expected. The emergency hearing was scheduled for the following Thursday. Derek had filed a motion for expedited proceedings, citing Vanna's escalating behavior and the threat she posed to my safety and property. Judge Morrison, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who'd been handling family court for 20 years, agreed to hear the case. In the days leading up to the hearing, Vanna made several attempts to contact me. She called from different numbers, sent emails to my work account, and even tried to approach me at the grocery store before security escorted her out. Each incident was documented, photographed, and added to our growing file of evidence. The restraining order was supposed to keep her 500 feet away, but Vanna seemed determined to test its limits. She parked at the edge of the boundary and watched my house through binoculars. She followed me to work, staying just far enough back to avoid violating the order. She sent letters through intermediaries, friends who didn't know the whole story and thought they were helping a desperate woman save her marriage. All of it went into the file. "She's making this too easy," Derek observed during one of our preparation meetings. "It's like she wants to lose." "She's desperate," I said. "Desperate people don't think clearly. Or maybe she's planning something big. One last play to turn this around." He was right to be concerned. I'd been thinking the same thing. Vanna was many things, but she wasn't stupid. All this erratic behavior, all these documented violations, it felt almost deliberate, like she was building towards something. That's when I decided to give her exactly what she wanted, one final confrontation. But this time, it would be on my terms, with my rules, and with an audience that would ensure the truth came out once and for all. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. I would arrange for Vanna to violate the restraining order in a very public way, in front of witnesses who could testify to her behavior. She would have her chance to say everything she wanted to say, to make all her accusations and air all her grievances. And when she was done, everyone in town would know exactly what kind of person she really was. I started by calling Mrs. Hennessy. "I need a favor," I said, "and I need you to be very careful about how you handle it." "Of course, dear. What can I do?" "I want you to let it slip. Accidentally, you understand. That I'll be at Murphy's Hardware tomorrow afternoon around 3 o'clock, picking up supplies for a home improvement project." That's oddly specific. It needs to be. And make sure you mention it to Linda Kowalski. Linda Kowalski was the biggest gossip in Vanna's social circle, the kind of woman who collected secrets like trading cards and dispensed them just as freely. If I wanted information to reach Vanna quickly, Linda was the most efficient delivery system. May I ask why? Let's just say I'm tired of being hunted. It's time to do some hunting of my own. The next step was setting the stage. Murphy's Hardware was perfect for what I had in mind, a local business in the center of town, with big windows facing Main Street and plenty of foot traffic on a Friday afternoon. More importantly, Jim Murphy was an old friend who owed me a few favors. "You want me to what?" Jim asked when I explained my plan. "I want you to let me use your store as a stage, just for an hour or so." "Marlow, this sounds dangerous." "It's not dangerous, it's justice." "What if she really goes crazy? What if she has a weapon?" "She won't, and even if she did, Oscar will be there." Jim looked skeptical, but he agreed. We'd known each other since high school, and he'd heard enough about my situation to understand why I needed this. Friday afternoon, I arrived at Murphy's Hardware at exactly 3 o'clock. Oscar was already there, browsing the tool section with a clear view of the front door. Derek was across the street at the coffee shop, ready to serve as a witness if needed. And scattered throughout the store were half a dozen other people, customers who had no idea they were about to become part of something bigger. I made a show of shopping for paint supplies, taking my time, making sure I was visible through the front windows. At 3:15, I saw Linda Kowalski walk past, glance into the store, and pull out her phone. At 3:22, Vanna's Honda Civic pulled up outside. She sat in the car for several minutes, probably working up her courage. Through the window, I could see her checking her appearance in the rearview mirror, practicing what she was going to say. Finally, she got out and walked toward the store. "Here we go," Oscar murmured, moving closer to the front of the store. Vanna pushed through the door like she was walking into battle. Her hair was perfect, her makeup was flawless, and she was wearing the blue dress I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. She'd dressed for this confrontation like it was a performance, which, in a way, it was. "Marlow," she called out, loud enough for everyone in the store to hear. "We need to talk." I turned around slowly, feigning surprise. "Vanna, you shouldn't be here." "I don't care about your stupid restraining order. I'm not going to let you destroy my life without a fight." The other customers had stopped what they were doing and were watching us with the fascination of people witnessing a car crash. Jim Murphy had come out from behind the counter, ready to intervene if necessary. "I'm not destroying anything," I said calmly. "I'm just not protecting you from the consequences of your actions anymore." "Consequences?" Her voice rose an octave. "You want to talk about consequences? What about the consequences of your selfishness, your coldness, your complete inability to make me happy? I made you unhappy? You ignored me for years. You took me for granted, treated me like a piece of furniture. You never listened to me, never supported my dreams, never made me feel like I mattered. So you decided to cheat on me with your brother-in-law. I decided to find someone who actually cared about me. In my bathtub. Yes, in your precious bathtub. Because at least there, with him, I felt alive again. I felt wanted and desired and loved." The store had gone completely quiet. Even the background music seemed to have stopped. "And how's that working out for you?" I asked. "What?" "Rylan, your true love, the man who made you feel so alive and wanted and desired. How's that relationship going?" Her face crumpled for just a moment before the anger returned. "He's confused right now, scared. But he'll come around." "Will he? Because from what I heard, he's pretty much done with you." "That's not true." "Isn't it? When's the last time you talked to him? When's the last time he returned your calls?" "He's just being careful. He's being smart. He's cutting his losses and moving on with his life. just like I am. You can't move on. I won't let you. You don't get a vote anymore, Vanna. She stepped closer, and I could see tears starting to form in her eyes. 8 years, Marlow. 8 years of marriage. Doesn't that mean anything to you? It used to, before you threw it away for a few afternoons with a man who doesn't even want you anymore. Stop it. Before you lied to me, betrayed me, and humiliated me in my own home. Stop it! Before you slashed my tires and vandalized my property and stalked me like some kind of— Stop it! She lunged at me, nails extended, going for my face. But Oscar was ready. He stepped between us and caught her wrists before she could reach me. That's enough, he said firmly. Let go of me, she screamed. Let go of me right now. Ma'am, you need to calm down. I'll calm down when this piece of garbage gets what he deserves. Jim Murphy had his phone out, calling the police. The other customers were backing toward the exits, but they were still watching, still listening to every word. What I deserve, I said. What I deserve is a wife who honors her vows. What I deserve is a partner who respects me enough not to screw around behind my back. What I deserve is someone who takes responsibility for her actions instead of blaming everyone else for her problems. I gave you the best years of my life. You gave me 8 years of lies and manipulation and selfishness, and I'm done pretending that was enough. The police arrived as Vanna was still struggling against Oscar's grip, still screaming threats and accusations. Officer Martinez, who'd handled the original vandalism report, took one look at the situation and shook his head. Mrs. Trasker, he said wearily, you're under arrest for violating a restraining order. This is harassment, she shrieked as he put the handcuffs on. He set this up. He planned this whole thing. Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it. As they led her away, she looked back at me one last time. This isn't over, Marlow. I'll make you pay for this. I'll make you all pay. The door closed behind them, and the store fell silent. Well, Jim Murphy said finally, that was something. The other customers began filing out, whispering among themselves, already spreading the story. By evening, everyone in town would know about Vanna's public meltdown at Murphy's Hardware. By tomorrow, the story would have grown in the telling, becoming more dramatic and more damaging with each retelling. You okay? Oscar asked. I'm perfect, I said. Absolutely perfect. Derek appeared at my elbow. We got everything on video. Audio, too. This is going to make the court hearing very interesting. When is she getting out? Probably tonight. But with this latest violation, plus the public disturbance, her lawyer's going to have a very difficult time arguing for anything resembling a favorable settlement. I looked around the store one more time at the paint cans and hardware and tools that had served as the backdrop for the final act of my marriage. It seemed fitting somehow. Murphy's Hardware was where I'd bought supplies for every home improvement project Vanna had ever demanded, every renovation and redecoration that was supposed to make us happier. Now it was where I'd finally finished the biggest home improvement project of all, removing Vanna from my life. The hearing the following Thursday was a formality. Judge Morrison listened to Derek's presentation of evidence, the original recordings, the vandalism reports, the restraining order violations, and the video from Murphy's Hardware, with the expression of someone who'd seen it all before. Vanna's lawyer, a tired-looking public defender named Patterson, made a half-hearted attempt to argue that his client was the victim of psychological abuse and manipulation. Judge Morrison cut him off after 5 minutes. Mr. Patterson, she said dryly, your client was caught on video having an affair, vandalizing property, violating a restraining order, and making threats in a public place. Unless you have evidence that Mr. Trasker held a gun to her head and forced her to do these things, I suggest we move on to the settlement discussion. The settlement was exactly what Derek had promised. Vanna got nothing. No spousal support, no share of the house, no claim on my business or investments. She got to keep her car, her personal belongings, and her debts. Everything else stayed with me. "This is ridiculous," she burst out, when Patterson explained the terms to her. "I was married to him for 8 years. I'm entitled to half of everything." "Mrs. Trasker," Judge Morrison said patiently, "you forfeited your claim to marital assets when you decided to conduct an extramarital affair using marital funds. You forfeited your right to spousal support when you began harassing and threatening your husband. And you forfeited any sympathy this court might have had when you chose to violate a restraining order and create a public disturbance. But the settlement stands. You have 30 days to remove your personal belongings from the marital home, supervised by a court officer. After that, you will have no further claim on Mr. Trasker or his property." She turned to look at me, her face a mask of rage and desperation. "You think you've won?" she said quietly. "But this isn't over. It'll never be over." "Yes," I said. "It is." And it was. 6 weeks later, I was sitting on my back porch with a bourbon and a sense of peace I hadn't felt in months. The house was quiet, the way I liked it. My life was my own again, ordered and predictable and free of drama. Mrs. Hennessy had moved on to other gossip. Apparently the Kowalskis were getting divorced, and Linda was making a spectacle of herself at the country club. Vanna had left town, according to the rumors, gone to live with a cousin in Massachusetts. Rylan had declared bankruptcy and was working as a used car salesman in Portland. Oscar stopped by around 8, carrying a 6-pack of beer and wearing a satisfied grin. "Heard from Derek today," he said, settling into the other porch chair. Vanna's lawyer filed a motion to reopen the settlement. On what grounds? Temporary insanity. Claims she wasn't responsible for her actions due to emotional distress. And Judge Morrison threw it out without a hearing. Said if Mrs. Trasker wanted to claim insanity, she should have thought of that before she signed the settlement agreement. I raised my bourbon in a toast. To Judge Morrison. To justice, Oscar corrected. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun set behind the trees. My phone buzzed once, a text from an unknown number, but I didn't bother to check it. Whatever it was could wait. "Any regrets?" Oscar asked eventually. I thought about it. 8 years of marriage, gone. A life I'd built, dismantled. A future I'd planned, canceled. "No," I said finally. "No regrets. What's next?" "Next, I live my life. On my terms. Without lies, without betrayal, without someone who thinks love is something you can turn on and off like a faucet." Sounds lonely. Sounds peaceful. Oscar laughed. "You know, for a guy who just went through a nasty divorce, you seem pretty happy." "I am happy. For the first time in years, I'm exactly where I want to be." "And where's that?" I looked around at my quiet house, my peaceful yard, my life without drama or chaos or someone else's problems. "Home," I said. "Finally home." The bourbon tasted like victory. The silence sounded like freedom. And for the first time since I'd walked into that bathroom and found my wife with another man, I felt like myself again. Some stains never come out, I thought. But sometimes you don't need to clean them. Sometimes you just need to throw away the whole garment and start fresh. I finished my drink and went inside to my quiet house, closing the door on the past and walking toward whatever came next. It was over, all of it, and I was free.